Hello, mutants. I'm Utisha, the movie goddess, and you're watching Mutant TV.
Welcome back, MVP. This is Streebo here with you from MutantVille.com, and I am very honored to be at the Fright Night Film Fest, Fandom Fest, with the one and only Michael Slipcase Felcher.
Where the hell did you come from?
I teleported in like Nightcrawler.
You're enjoying a nice moment to myself, and then I was like, what the fuck? What's it? Oh, you want to talk about Romero some more, don't you?
We want to talk about Romero. Because, number one, the man is the godfather of modern horror. If it was not for Night of the Living Dead and then Dawn of the Dead, modern horror would not exist as it is today. And there's something, a statement that's been going around in the fan communities with regards to Romero and his last few movies, and it is that they think Romero's latest movies, both Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, were awful, and that he should stop making movies. What do you think about that?
No.
There you have it. No. Thank you for joining us, Jim.
No, you want some more elaboration on that? Okay. No, I don't agree that's true. I don't think that's... I mean, I think I would actually argue that it kind of began with Land of the Dead. Because it had been such a long time since he had done another zombie movie that... for me, it's just a matter of expectations. And also, George does very different films each time out. You can't compare Land to Diary to Day to Night, and it's just a matter of opening your mind and kind of working with. I mean, if the movie doesn't work for you, that's one thing. If you didn't buy into the scenario or the story doesn't work for you or anything. But some of the things I heard criticized didn't make any sense to me. Like, I remember them saying, oh, the acting's terrible in Survival of the Dead. It's like, bullshit. I thought the acting in Survival was fantastic, especially Kenneth Welsh, who plays the lead of the clan there. And he's so funny and vibrant, and it was just, George was able to get some really interesting performances from people, and he never gets credit for that. He's a really good actor's director, and I swear to God he never gets credit for that, ever. And it's just, look, are there flaws in all his movies? Of course, there are flaws in every movie, but, this whole thing, Romero should pack it up. Fuck you. You pack it up. You go do this shit. I'm sorry. It's just a bunch of crap.
Well, I think what happens with fans is that the work, they become so enamored of the past works that when something new comes out, they have what are essentially unreasonable expectations.
Yeah, that happens a lot, actually. I mean, it's funny. That happened to me on Day of the Dead. So I was just getting into horror when I first saw that, and Dawn was like the greatest thing I'd ever seen. One of those movies that literally changed my life. And when Day of the Dead came out, I was like, I want to see this, and I want this to be Dawn again. I want that experience again. Well, George has already done that. And Day is a complete 180 in tone from Dawn of the Dead. And I remember after Day of the Dead, I was like, Jesus Christ, this wasn't fun. These people are all assholes. They're all underground. Humanity's gone to fucking shit. Everyone's just like, no one to root for in this. Oh my God, nihilism, fucked. Oh God. But it was my fault in a way because I was expecting something, and it wasn't George's responsibility to give me the movie I was expecting. It was his job to do a movie that he was interested in telling. And when I went back to Day of the Dead, I took Dawn out of the picture and watched it for what it was. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. These people are actually saying some interesting shit. And I experienced it on its own level with no expectations, no preconceptions, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And now it's become probably my favorite of the entire Dead films because I just think that it was such a bold statement on his part. But when I first watched it, again, I had the same reaction. This isn't like Dawn of the Dead, fuck this. But that's an immature reaction. That's not how you're supposed to. And George is not one of those filmmakers that gives you the same thing every single time. And thank God he doesn't, because how boring would that shit be?
I remember when Land initially came out, I went to see the first theatrical cut, and I came away feeling disappointed. I was like, what is missing from this? Because, with Day, it's so bleak and nihilistic. You end at the end of it, and it's just like, oh, it's such a downer. But, there's a lot of really strong philosophical content in it. And then with Land, you get to the end of it, and it feels almost like an unfinished story. It really felt like he was setting up a sequel, so he kind of put the brakes on everything that happened. But then I went and saw the director's cut, because they had that one-night showing, and I went and saw it where it had all the gore put back, and it was like listening to a song that had all the chorus put back into it, and finally you could understand the roller coaster ride. It made the movie so much better, and the characters, like you say, are fantastic. They were so engaging.
I enjoyed Land a lot. I really did. I thought Land was really entertaining. Did I have a few problems with it here and there? Yeah. And I mean, George had a very difficult time shooting that, not because really of studio interference, but because it was a brutal shoot. They were shooting in the middle of winter practically, and it was all exteriors, and and there's always expectations. He had a very ambitious story, even though it was a well-budgeted movie. He probably could have used twice that amount of money to get that accomplished. And but it's such an entertaining roller coaster ride of a flick. And plus, you got Dennis Hopper in there. You got John Leguizamo. You've got it's just an Asia Argento, a really strong visual style. And it had a really good subtext to it. Again, George likes to get up on the soapbox a little bit, but at the same time, he'll throw some guts at you to kind of eat. It's like the sugar, make the medicine go down, And look, all I know is I trust my ability to not bullshit myself too much. As close as I am to these films in many regards, especially the last two, because I was there filming on them and everything, I know that I can't bullshit myself to the point where it's like, oh yes, this is good, and even though it really sucks, I know that I enjoyed all three films for various reasons. And I can see the problems. I have problems with all three, but not enough to make me just utterly dismiss them. That's the thing I guess I'm the most bothered by, is that the fans dismiss them out of hand with some really just mean comments. Like, Romero's washed up. These movies are bullshit. Well, why? It's like, it's easy to take cheap shots. How about actually watching it and giving me a fair appraisal of it? There have been negative reviews of all three films I've actually liked, because at least they went in and explained, this is why I don't like this. And it had nothing to do with, because he didn't do Dawn of the Dead again, but because I didn't like this approach, or I didn't like the camera in Diary of the Dead, or I didn't believe in this, or I believe in that. Those I don't have a problem with, but those people were in the minority. It was just a lot of these people saying, oh, this is bullshit, Romero's lost it. Again, fuck you. It's just, what do you want?
Well, with Land, he made such an epic movie for $20 million. The irony of this and the real pain of it, he made this huge story for $20 million. And it was half of what Zack Snyder was given, $40 million, to remake Romero's own Dawn of the Dead, which is, it's an affront to the master. But I was thrilled when Diary of the Dead came out, because I felt like he really scaled it back. He took his foot off of the kind of the likable characters that were in Land. He brought that nihilistic feel back. It was all really scaled down. He used a lot of amazing filmmaking techniques, like hearing so much of the events on the radio and things that were implied.
Diary was a very experimental film. I mean, it evolved so much while we were shooting it, because George wanted to do something very stripped down, but very experimental, and something that he wasn't necessarily comfortable with. He was doing long, extended takes, and it was a challenge for a lot of us to kind of wrap our heads around what form is this going to finally take. And it changed dramatically in post-production. It had a very long post-production process, and scenes were altered and shot. Like, for example, that wonderful scene with the Amish farmer was added in a reshoot later. That wasn't part of the film originally. And that's the great thing, is that, George can go back in on the way these budgets work. They can put aside a couple days every time out saying, okay, we can work on the film for a while, figure out where we need to maybe juice things a little bit or change a few things, go back and reshoot. Land of the Dead had a reshoot, but it was so quick and so fast that everyone was still worn out, Whereas the reshoots on both Survival, actually I don't want to call them reshoots because we didn't really reshoot anything. The additional shooting on Diary and Survival took place months after principal photography was done. So we could really get in there and just fine-tune some stuff, or George could anyway. And I don't know. I think he's excited by political and social issues. He's excited by the filmmaking medium itself. And he doesn't just, like I said, he doesn't want to just, all right, let's go back to the shopping mall,
Which would be the easiest thing to do, and people would probably love it. They'd love to see Dawn of the Dead 2.
That's funny. If he did Dawn of the Dead 2, all these people who are bitching that he's not giving them Dawn of the Dead. So, well, this is just the same thing again. You can't. There's just some people you can't fucking please.
You just can't win. You can't win. Now you're pretty close with Romero. Do you have any inside tips on what he might be working on next?
You know, it's funny. I haven't talked to George in a while. He's been just kind of doing his own thing, but I'm hoping to find out what's going on. I hope there's another film coming soon. Survival came out last year. It seemed to do pretty well. And I saw him late. The last time I saw George was late last year, and he was developing a couple different projects. Whether it's another undead movie or not, I don't know. But hopefully there'll be some news soon, I would think. I'm hoping so.
I hope so. I really enjoyed Survival. I thought it was a good change of pace. An artist really has to challenge themselves and change up each time and, in a certain effect, reinvent themselves almost. And it was fun to really see that, kind of him just have fun with the whole thing.
That was the thing. I think people took that movie way too seriously. You know, and I when we were watching it on the set, I got the tone right away. I said, this thing is a Western dark comedy comic book adventure. This is, in a weird way, the tone is very similar to Dawn of the Dead, even though the setting couldn't be more different. It's got a very anarchic spirit to it. It's not meant to be taken like Day of the Dead or something, even though Day of the Dead is darkly funny as well. But people watch Survival of the Dead. It's like, oh, there's this humor in that. It's like, where the fuck have you been? George has got a sense of humor in all his movies. So, yeah, I mean, was some of the humor a little corny? Yeah, but there was a fucking pie fight in Dawn of the Dead, for Christ's sakes. Like, this has come out of nowhere that George has suddenly developed a wacky sense of humor. Again, fuck you, you know?
Romero inspires me because, like you said, he does like to play with social and political subtext. He imbues all of his films with those. And I think as... Swing over there. Hey, we're gearing this is for you, buddy. We're gearing this up for you guys. So next time you guys are talking about Romero, you get to hear it. They've been stalking us all day.
The other asshole from Dead.
But as I was saying, it's inspiration to me.
My groove here, buddy. Stop it. I'm trying to be all serious and shit here. High-minded and literate and all that kind of crap.
So we as filmmakers have a responsibility to try to put some kind of theme into it, and I think that's something for me. Do you think there's anything that today's filmmakers, especially independent filmmakers, should learn from Romero?
I think what they would learn from Romero is to basically put your heart into it. Put everything you got into it. Don't be afraid to put your mind and your heart and everything into it, because at the end of the day, they're your films. And you only get one shot at this. There's no guarantee. When you make a movie, there's no guarantee you're going to get another one. So go for fucking broke. Don't hold back. You know, temper it with, reason and logic and your own instincts. But, George doesn't shy away. It's like, I want to talk about the haves and the have-nots. I want to talk about how the rich never learn and we always make the same mistakes again. I want to talk about the war in Iraq. Well, people will give him money to do zombie movies, so fine. I'll use that and use that as a medium to tell the stories I want. And if he gets a little bit on the soapbox, fine. Then George will be the first to admit, look, Dawn of the Dead ain't subtle. It's not hard to read the subtext in Dawn of the Dead. You got zombies walking around a shopping mall. That's the easiest metaphor in the world to fucking understand. But at the same time, as long as you create vivid characters, smart dialogue, you can whip as much crap in there as you want, and people will buy it because you're giving them quality product. And at the end of the day, George, whether you like the films or not that he's been doing lately, or even some of his earlier work, whatever, the one thing you cannot say about him is that he's lazy or just doesn't give a shit. He puts his heart out there every single time, because every time he gets a film, he feels it's a blessing, a great opportunity to explore his creativity and talk about the issues he wants to talk about. He's not out there just going, oh, whatever, let's just throw some zombies and shit out there. We all know what those kind of films are like. Those are not George's films at all. So I think what they can learn from George is, when you look at a George Romero movie, whether you like it or not, that's a George A. Romero movie. There's no mistaking it for any other filmmaker. You got to make it your own. Don't just get out there and do the same generic crap. Have a point. Put your heart and soul into it. Don't fuck around.
there you have it. Don't fuck around. So thank you very much for joining us, Slippy. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. What's your name again?
Streebo, Mutantville.com. Don't you forget it.
Oh, right.
We're from North Carolina, too, even though he doesn't claim it anymore.
No, I was there I did my 15 years. I'm done. But I loved it.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.
You're watching Mutant TV.